Morning, everyone. Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live, the gambling and DFS show. We're here 5 days a week, but we have a couple bonus shows coming up. I want to announce these right now because of the international game tomorrow morning, which is going to be Kansas City, Miami. I don't know how many people actually want to come on a live sit stream on that during that game. So we will have a sit stream today as well, 4 Eastern. We'll still do the one at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. John Ryan had a baby shower for his grandchild last week. Very exciting times. John, welcome back. How did it go?
Oh, it was a great time. It was just one of those days that you just never forget. So sorry that I missed, but it was obviously for a very good reason.
Could not be a better reason than, but we're excited you're back. We're glad you had a great time. Remember, John Ryan, a consistent winner. We know him from the predictive playbook. We know him from RotoWire. His best bets hit like a 65% clip over the last number of years. NCAA, NFL, well over the 60% mark. Like John says, that means you're going to lose a percentage at a time. You don't win all the time, but John is a grinder. John studies. He gives you trends. Professional gambler. He's who you want to get your gambling advice from. Always be careful of who you're listening to when you're getting picks. John Ryan, we're going to get right into things here. We've got an NFL game that you're going to handicap for us. Everybody's excited to watch that Dallas-Philadelphia game. So a few different things about this game coming in. Dallas, even though they lost Trevon Diggs and Leighton Vander Esch, their defense plays at a fairly high level most weeks. They get a great pass rush. They're good in coverage. They play a lot of man coverage. It's going to be important. 40%. Man, I'll talk about that in the DFS part of the show. Eagles, meanwhile, offense, they don't have a flow, but they figured out if you throw the ball to A.J. Brown, things typically work out. That's gone well for them. Defensively, this is not a good defense. They're very good against the run. Their pass rush is good, but not like last year. Still good, but they are poor in coverage. And we always think of Slay and Bradbury. They're not having good years. So, John, all these setups coming into this game, can you handicap it for us?
Well, this is a game it's very difficult to handicap for some of the reasons you outlined just now, Jim. These are divisional rivals. And what really wasn't talked about too often this week is the winner of this game is going to have the number 1 seed in the NFC by virtue of the tiebreaker that Dallas would own over Philadelphia. So this game, even though it's 5-2 against 7-1, has monumental implications for the rest of the regular season in the NFC. We've seen a team like San Francisco get out to a 5-0 start and then lose 3 straight in a row, which no one saw coming. But that is the typical of the NFL that we know now. The hardest part of the Eagles' schedule starts tomorrow, and they could easily do the same thing as San Francisco. I think this game is going to be one of the more exciting games played this year. A lot of back and forth, a lot of key plays, a lot of big shots down the field, a lot of sacks. Any type of defensive play imaginable, I wouldn't put it past this matchup to happen. And, of course, it's in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial, so you know the fans are going to be prepared fully for this game. But in this matchup, it's a very intriguing one because everybody talks about the Eagles' defense being so good, and it's kind of a memory thing, I think, from last year that they set the sack record for the franchise and basically led the league, I believe, Jim, by at least double digits over the next best team. But still, there is a lot more as I pull up the rankings here real quick. I don't know what happened to that page, but it'll only take me a second.
While you're pulling that up, the Eagles had 70 sacks last year. That was one of those seasons that you do not see. And clearly they're not replicating that this year. A good pass rush, one of the better ones, but it's not, that was like not all-time great, but kind of close to that. So that was pretty off the charts. Did you find your stat, John?
Yep, I did. And what we have here is 2 of the best teams in the league. I wouldn't, if somebody said the Dallas Cowboys were the best team in the NFC right now, I wouldn't be able to debate that. If somebody said the Eagles were, I wouldn't be able to debate that. Detroit is a team that is probably 3rd on my power rankings right now in the NFC. So that team, I think, is going to continue to make noise along the way here, no matter what the outcome of this game is. But we have the number 2 offense in Dallas Cowboys scoring 28.1 points per game. They do score a lot more at home, but not that much this season. Points per game for Philly is number 3 in the league at 28.0. So just 1/10 of a point per game between the 2 teams. Defensively, Philly, it ranks 19th in scoring defense, 21.5 points per game. They allowed 31 to Sam Howell and the Commanders last week and played zone defense for almost the entire game. I believe the game plan must have been that, okay, we'll give up the chunk yardage and we'll keep everything in front of us, but we're not going to go man-to-man and lose this game because of it. That brings great concern to me, Jim, in this matchup against Dallas, because if the Eagles choose to play zone, and I'm no defensive coordinator, but if they choose to play zone, Prescott and that arsenal of weapons that he has are just going to pick them apart, and it's going to be an ugly day in Philly. So I think for the first time this year, we're going to see the Eagles defense really bring the load of pressure, and probably more than 40% of the plays run. So that is where I see them defending it. But at the end of the day, I see Dallas winning this game. And after all, we have Philly 7-1, Dallas 5-2, and the line is 3. I mean, the market is telling you that the Dallas is the play here, and that doesn't mean it's going to win. It doesn't mean it's going to lose either. But the value here, I think, is with Dallas. Eagles, like I said, gave up 31 last week, and that's just not a good thing. And I do have a betting angle here that I can read to you. It's right here. So right here we are. Sorry about this, Jim. We're betting on real teams using the money line that is coming off a home win by 21 or more points from week 6 on to the end of the season. That has earned a highly profitable 40-22 straight up record and being dogs. That's just in the last 5 seasons.
Wow.
If the team is priced as a dog, they have gone on to a highly profitable 15-12 straight up, 19-8 against the spread record for 70% over the last 5 seasons. And here's the clincher for me. If our Road Warrior is facing a divisional foe, and this is one of the biggest divisional rivalries in all of football, they have gone 7-3 straight up and 9-1 against the spread for 90% over the last 5 seasons. So with all the delays in my information, Jim, you get the point now that we're all over the Dallas Cowboys tomorrow.
Yeah, as I always tell the audience, John, you tell people you understand the game, you understand the teams, but you also know so many trends. And this is what makes John a professional gambler as opposed to people that are just giving partial scenarios and reasons. We're going to do some DFS here, and a lot of this is going to correlate with John's Dallas pick here. But right now, we'll just do quarterbacks and running backs. I'm only giving 2 this week. Look, there's 4 teams on bye. Tua and Mahomes are not on the main slate. Burrow and Josh Allen are not on the main slate. Justin Herbert's not on the main slate. And there's a lot of bad quarterbacks this week in bad situations. The quarterback play we've had about each week is like 5 to 7 quarterbacks that probably should not be on an NFL field. So I'm going to give you 2. And I don't have a hold your nose one this week because I don't want to give you bad advice. So the top play on the board for me is Dak Prescott, 6,500. So Philly, we just talked about it. They're weak against the pass. Now, there are a couple of trends I noticed. How did Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy whoop them up in a rematch where they already had seen what they did? Well, here's what they did. They threw on early downs. I want to say it was almost 90% of the time. It was like literally through the roof. They didn't run on early downs. That's where you get Philly. You negate their run defense. You negate their pass rush. They threw on early downs. Well, Dallas, coming out of their bye, they've been throwing more on early downs. So their current trend is matching up with where you can best attack Philly. And Prescott, obviously, they don't have an answer for CeeDee Lamb. If they put him in the slot, Philly's toast. But right now, the way Slay and Bradbury are playing, Lamb is going to beat either of them. And if you get Bradbury on a double move, oh my gosh, even better because he'll bite on those. Anyway, so we're going to look at Dak Prescott. The other one, this is a GPP only play, okay? Because I'll lay up the idea. Derek Carr, 5,700 against the Bears. When Derek Carr is at home, he's obviously a better quarterback. In the dome is very helpful for him. And when he's not pressured. Now, they get their left tackle, James Hurst, back. They got Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle, back last week. The Bears do not have a pass rush. I know they just traded this week. It's not going to be an impact yet, but not enough anyway. Derek Carr is going to be clean to throw. Here's why he's a GPP only play, though, because if they choose to run the ball and have a lot of success, Carr may not have to throw a lot. If they choose to turn him loose, he could have a massive game. So he's GPP only because it's a big variance game for him. So that's what I need you to understand there. Running backs. Jonathan Taylor is 6,400 at Carolina. Now, I know he and Zach Moss are almost equally splitting the work, but every week, Jonathan Taylor's snap share has gone up. It went up to 62% last week, and that's continuing to come on the rise. Well, against Carolina is one of the worst run defenses in the league. At one point, they're giving, and I didn't check last week, it was like 5.7 yards per carry. They are atrocious, and the interior run blocking of the Colts is playing at that elite level it did in prior years. And so this is one where Taylor can cash at 6,400, and he should get a little more work this week. Now, the game script also should be favorable. There should be no point where Carolina would have a big lead where they have to abandon, Indy has to abandon the run, and Indy may be playing with a lead. So we love that. Aaron Jones is 6,200 against the Rams. The coach finally said, and I've been pointing this out for weeks. We noticed the practice. We noticed that he wasn't a full go. Well, Matt LaFleur said yesterday, went to the Athletics beat writer, I should say it was probably a presser, and said that Aaron Jones will be turned loose. So now he is full go, ready to play. 6,200 is a cheap price tag for him. And remember, early last year, about the first half of the season before Jones got nicked up, he was the clear lead back. A.J. Dillon took a back seat. I expect that here. 6,200 is a cheap price. Green Bay desperately needs him. The Rams, this is not an oppressive matchup. The Rams have been okay against the run, but the weapon that is Aaron Jones as a runner and a receiver far exceeds the matchup. Rachaad White is 5,600 at Houston. Now, I'm betting his under prop on the rushing yards, but that's not where he's getting. He's a cash game play, by the way. The reason being, in DraftKings, full PPR. He's caught 6 and 7 passes in the last 2 games. Houston allows the 7th most receiving yards per game, the running backs. And we know that when Baker Mayfield doesn't see his receivers instantly open, he's very quick to the check down. The check down has become a big part of that offense. So cash game play, Rachaad White, 5,600. I don't see him as a GPP option. I don't think he has the ceiling for that. Now, this one is if you really want to have a punt play, differentiate from the field. But I'm going to explain why Mike Boone, like who? $4,000 against Tampa. All right, Mike Boone is with the Houston Texans. Mike Boone was behind the third string running back. There was Damian Pierce, who's out this week. There was Devin Singletary, who was kind of closing in on the lead anyway. And then there was Boone. Boone, in the last 2 weeks, played 16 and 17% of the snaps with Pierce and Singletary active. Now, my case here for Mike Boone, he hasn't had a lot of touches in his career. But in his career, he's 5.3 yards per carry. Last year, again, only 24 carries, but 4.3 yards per carry. Whenever he's on the field, he's generally effective. I believe there's no way they're giving Devin Singletary 25, 30 touches here. I believe there's a great chance that Mike Boone simply moves in to a number 2 role, which could get him 10 to 14 touches. This is a GPP only. You are taking a chance. Because we have no idea how this shakes out, but nonetheless, the matchup against Tampa Bay, people keep thinking Tampa run defense. They're tough. No, there's not a good run defense. They're one of the worst run defense in the league, bottom half for sure. And Mike Boone would have opportunity. And again, I think he could see 45, 50% of the snaps, and nobody's going to be on Mike Boone. All right, John. Again, I talked a bit too much as I often do. We're going to get with another NFL game here. Anybody in the chat, if you have questions about start sit, we're doing a live start sit stream today. This channel where you're watching now, 4 Eastern. We'll do another one tomorrow at 11 Eastern. So definitely catch in for those. We'll cover some DFS and some gambling here. John, second game, Monday Night Football. Chargers at the Jets. Look, the Chargers, since they lost Mike Williams, it's changed their offense because Keenan Allen gets bracketed, and then that leaves Josh Palmer, who's okay, but he's not 100% right now, and Gerald Everett, okay. Quentin Johnson, they force him some targets against a bad Bears defense. This offense is a little bit limited. Austin Eckler, as a runner, hasn't looked great since coming out from the high ankle. He did get the receiving yards against the Bears, but again, it was the Bears. And the Jets playing at home, their defense has been outstanding at home. They have held down the Chiefs, they've held down the Eagles, and this team has been very solid defensively at home. What angle do you like betting on this game, John?
Well, I'll tell you one thing as an introduction to the best bet. Last week was one of those really rare games in which there were more punts made by both teams combined than they scored points. We're talking about the Giants and the Jets game, 13-10. Jets win in overtime. It even took overtime, Jim, to get to 23. Really amazing game. Now, I went into the database, of course. I wanted to know how often this happens because it sounds crazy. But since 1989, there's been 85 such games where there's been more punts than points scored. Pretty amazing stat, I think. There's 8,754 games played since 1989, so it's only 1% of all the games played. But when it happens, I think it's just shocking that the offenses could be that inept. And credit to the defenses, because the Jets do have one of the best defenses in the league for sure. So teams that won the game in which there were more punts than points scored by both teams are now playing at home, 24-10 to the under for 71% winning bets since 1989. And as we know, next up for the Jets is they're hosting that Monday Night Football showdown with LA Chargers. And a total of 40 points makes you, I'm sure the betting public will be betting over, because at 40 in the NFL, it just seems like that's just way too low. But I do think that this game is going to be one of those another 17-14 type affairs. And who wins this game, I don't know. I would have an edge to the Chargers in this one, Jim. But I do like the under. And live betting, as you know, I'd love to do. So here's my suggestion: is you bet 50% of your pre-flop, of your betting amount pre-flop, meaning before the game, at 40 points. Then look for these teams possibly to get out to a little bit quicker start. Say they go 7-7 in the first quarter. All of a sudden, that total is going to be around 44.5, maybe even higher, giving you the opportunity then to add the second 50% betting amount. So nobody says you have to bet 100% pre-flop. You don't have to bet anything pre-flop. You could wait for this game to start, and if it starts out fast, then you have an option to play it or not play it. So that's how I'm going to go with this game. I like the under.
Now we got Josh and Charlene in the house. Welcome aboard. Glad you're here. We got other people here. Glad you joined us today. Thanks for making us a part of your football weekly routine. It means a lot to us. Go through a few more DFS plays, and John will give you another big pick here. I'm going to go with some wide receivers here. So look, we like Dak Prescott. Well, we got to link him up with somebody. CeeDee Lamb is 8,200. Very, very pricey, coming off of two bigger games, especially last week. He crushed. But look, we said it earlier. Philly can't stop the pass. They could move Lamb in the slot and he could completely destroy them, but he could win on the outside against Slayer Bradbury. I have no issue with that either. And I think they're understanding the need to make him the focal point of the passing game instead of the one game they threw like 10 targets to Michael Gallup. What are you thinking? But anyway, CeeDee Lamb moving in that stratosphere. Now, look, same game. And I know he's done it every week, and I know he's the auto play. A.J. Brown is 8,600. A lot of money. Here's the main point I want to make. Dallas plays 40% man defense, which is one of the highest rates in the league. Well, when A.J. Brown is and the Eagles are facing man-to-man defense, half of the passing targets against man are going to A.J. Brown. It is an insanely high rate of targets, and I don't care who Dallas puts on him, and I don't care what defense there is. A.J. Brown, there are no 50-50 balls with A.J. Brown. They're like 80-20 balls. He is winning at any type of catch point there is, and he continues that, and the downfield passes are there. And Dallas, as good as their defense is, and the corners are playing well. They're not playing A.J. Brown well, and there's going to be a shootout in my mind. And so we're going to put A.J. Brown and stack that game up. Michael Pittman, 6,600 against Carolina. Now, this is a cash game play, not a tournament play. Carolina has major issues at cornerback, but they also have injuries at safety. It's a big problem. And so what happens is Michael Pittman will get a lot of slant routes underneath her, but yardage after the catch, he's very good at that. With safety injuries, that allows some communication issues and Pittman to be able to take advantage of that. So again, he is a cash game play. Another cash game play is Amari Cooper, 6,100 against Arizona. Look, Deshaun Watson, when he came back a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, his arm wasn't right. I imagine at this point, he is okay to go. I have to think that they bring him back. They knew what the arm was last time. It has to be better than it was. He has to be able to make the throws. And Amari Cooper, Watson had been locking on him. Arizona, they get very little pressure. They're terrible in coverage. Some of the worst cornerback play we're going to see. And Cooper, even in the running game, look, it's okay, but they're going to have to throw to sustain some offense, even though they'll play with the lead in this game. Little cheaper, another cash game play, Demario Douglas, $4,000 against the Commanders. He has 13 targets in his last two games. Kendrick Bourne is out for the season. Devontae Parker, I know he plays a different role. DeMario does his little slot. I get that. But I'm going to make a case here. And Devontae Parker hasn't been much, but he's out as well. So your receiver trio is going to be Jalen Reagor, Juju Smith-Schuster, and DeMario Douglas. And I do think there's going to be a lot of slot passes in this game against Washington. I think that's where Mac Jones is comfortable. The interior pressure in the pass rush could be a little bit from Jonathan Allen. And, oh, man, I don't know why I just lost my mind on the other one. But anyway, I'll tell you who that is. So it bounced in my head. But they did lose their 2 outside pass rushers to trades this week. And that's going to be a big hit for them right now. So anyway, Michael Pittman is a cash game play. DeMario Douglas, I'm sorry, it's a cash game play. Now, the last one. This could be a cheap GPP punt. Last week, we saw Jamison Crowder. He's 3,400 in that same New England game. We saw him go for 795 and a touchdown. The reason he played and performed was Curtis Samuel went out of the game with a toe injury. Curtis Samuel is out. So at the very least, Jamison Crowder picks up Samuel's role. And Jamison Crowder, I'll say this about him. When he is healthy and he is on the field, he is an excellent NFL receiver. The knock on him has been injuries. He's often hurt, and obviously then he's not useful in fantasy football. He's healthy. He's on the field. New England is going to try to get some pressure on Sam Howell. They're going to figure out a way to make him uncomfortable. Crowder in the middle of the field is going to be a viable weapon in this game, 3,400. All right, and then tight end. Taysom Hill is 4,700 against the Bears. In the last 3 games, it's been extreme usage. Some games heavy receiving, some games heavy rushing. He throws a pass or two. Used heavily in the red zone. That work isn't going away. The first 2 games that coincided with Juwan Johnson being out. Juwan Johnson was back last week, and Taysom Hill still got the usage. So, look, we're going to ride this train. I think he's become a staple of the offense. Same Dallas game. So, if we're going to stack that game all the way up, Prescott, Lamb, A.J. Brown, consider running it back with Jake Ferguson as well. 4,000 against the Eagles. Remember, the Eagles, one of their biggest deficiencies is the middle of the field. Like I said, they're struggling against the pass altogether, but we know they can bring a pass rush. And Dallas' offensive line, it's decent. It's not what it was. It's a middling line now. They're okay. And Tyron Smith is still hurt. Don't know if he goes, but I don't know that it matters here. But getting the ball in the middle of the field, Dak Prescott's always done that. Ferguson has 4 to 7 targets in most of his games. He was used in the red zone frequently, including last week. He scored a nice touchdown. He could be a nice play at 4,000. And then finally, just like I said with Jamison Crowder against New England, middle of the field, Logan Thomas, I give him balls every week because most weeks he gets targets. Most weeks he gets looks in the red zone. He's 3,500. You're looking to save some money. He has both most weeks a good floor and always the ability to score. And then finally, a couple defenses, John. We got the Giants 2,300 at Las Vegas. Aiden O'Connell's the quarterback. The pass rush over the course of the season for New York has not looked good, but in the last few weeks, they have really come to life. The interior pressure they're getting with Dexter Lawrence, that is exactly where you attack the Raiders line on the interior. Tackles are good. Interior, not good. So the Giants could cause a lot of trouble for O'Connell. It's a volatile play because they have Devontae Adams, who's happy now with no Josh McDaniels and Jacoby Myers. But I still think the Giants, if you had a punt, that's a good punt. Patriots 2,900 against Washington. I said there were a couple punt plays on the Washington receiving side, but I think they're going to figure out a way to get to Sam Howell and sack him a lot. So 2,900. And then if you're willing to spend up, the Saints at home against the Bears. Tyson Bagent was overmatched in a moderate matchup last week. He will be really overmatched against the Saints defense. The Saints win against the run, against the pass, and the pass rush. They're one of the better defenses in the league. They play very well at home. John Ryan, we got a third game, and then we'll get to some comments after that. Last game we're going to talk about, we talked about that Giants and Raiders game here. We talked about the defense for DFS. Giants are getting 2 points at the Raiders. Tell us about this game.
Well, this game is going to be a contrarian play, and it is very difficult, I think, to bet a matchup like this where 2 teams are obviously struggling mightily. The Giants' offense is dead last in the league in scoring offense at 11.9 points per game. It sounds like I'm talking about a baseball team, not a football team, when I say 11.9. Yards per game, they're also dead last, 268. They are dead last in points per play, which is a pretty powerful metric I use in my modeling at 0.18. And I could go on and on. Yards per play, dead last, 4.1. But they're going against a Raiders team that also struggles mightily on defense, and it's really not reflected as bad as I think they are based on their rankings in their stats. They're 22nd in scoring defense, allowing 23.4, 21st in yards per game at 339, 24th in points per play allowed at 0.385, and 28th allowing 5.6. So even though the Giants are coming off a dreadful overtime loss in which they let the Jets come back and get into overtime and end up losing it, this is a matchup I think they can score points, and also with a defense that isn't all that bad, that can contain this Las Vegas offense and reduce it to what they were last week. Las Vegas ranks 28th in the league, gaining just 4.6 points per game and scoring 15.8 per game. So I think the advantage here is a defensive struggle, but with the Giants coming out on top, I think this is a game too that the Giants could force more turnovers than the Raiders force. And again, it all comes down to a play here on the Giants, and it's definitely an ugly dog here. One of the betting systems I do have here is pretty simple here. It is, we're going to bet on dogs, and as long as it stays at pick'em or 1.5 is the current line now for the Giants, this will be a qualified play. So you're going to bet on dogs that are facing an opponent that's coming off 2 consecutive road losses in a matchup of losing record teams with win percentages between 25 and 40%. So we're talking the bottom of the barrel in the league, but there's even opportunities at the bottom of the barrel sometimes. If the team is a road dog and facing that opponent that is coming off 2 road losses with those win percentages I mentioned, 33-10 against the spread since 1980. So it hasn't happened very often, but when it does, it's quite powerful. 77% winning bets, covering 33% of those games, Jim, covered by an average of 7 points in the game. And then if a game is lined between the threes, meaning a +3 dog to a -3 favorite, and we're playing on that road team after playing the foe that was coming off a 2-game road trip, with the game now occurring between weeks 5 and 9. We are in week 9, so this qualifies. 25-5 against the spread. That translates to 83% against the spread winners, supporting the Giants. And believe me, I know it's tough to put money on any team this bad right now, but it's the numbers are what I'm betting, and it's telling me to take the Giants.
Yeah, I said earlier in the show, John, you give the trends that back up your research and your knowledge of the game, and that's why people are listening to you for their gambling advice. Before we go to your work, we had a couple comments we'll take from the chat here. Charlene, you got a few of them here. You dropped Jameson Williams and you picked up Brandon Cooks. It was a good choice. The Browns sent over Donovan Peoples-Jones to the Lions this week. Jameson Williams is not seeing nearly a full snap. He's seeing like half, 40% at most. That's going to probably go down because Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of plays the same position that Jameson Williams plays. So adding Brandon Cooks is fine. And you asked about should you pick up Crowder over Brandon Cooks? I don't think so. I like Crowder as a GPP play, but Brandon Cooks in a potentially high-scoring game, this is a good matchup, and he's played well the last couple of weeks. And then Joshua Motley, this might be for you, John, because I won't have any way to answer this. Joshua Motley asks, Ohio State against the spread. Is that anything you could talk about on the show, or is that something that you're highlighting elsewhere?
Ohio State's playing Rutgers in this Saturday afternoon, so it is an important game for Ohio State, being number 1 in the first college football playoff rankings, which are meaningless, by the way, because Ohio State has to play Michigan yet, and they're both in the top 4. So the standings could look entirely different come the last poll, which is in 5 weeks. But I like the under in this game. It's just a lean. I really don't have a selection here. If you forced me to bet pizza money on the game, I would take Rutgers in the points. They're a very scrappy team, and they could cause a lot of problems for Ohio State. And this total is very low for an Ohio State team. And I think that's telling you, too, the market is suggesting that, the under is probably the way to go here. And again, use the live in-game betting, because Ohio State could get out to a 14-0 lead pretty quick. They're known to do it. And then you can peg that total at around 49.5 perhaps. So be patient with it. But I think those are the 2 sides that I would choose to play.
And then finally, Josh asks us, valuing Javonte Williams over Aaron Jones. So Javonte Williams has now become the complete lead back in Denver, but I still wonder how much upside there really is in that offense, and ultimately that could be problematic. Aaron Jones, look, I told people as soon as he's healthy, which seems like now, I really feel like he could be a league winner. And so they both have great value. But for this year, I'm going to give Aaron Jones down the stretch a little more because I believe that the Green Bay Packers need him, and Aaron Jones can win as a runner and receiver. And finally, you asked about T. Higgins. I would rate him over Christian Kirk. And with the Bears' uncertainty at quarterback right now, maybe even over DJ Moore, is with Higgins is healthy, and finally Joe Burrow is healthy. This offense, we're going to begin to see the best of them yet. So I like that. All right, everybody, if you have start-sit questions, we will see you on the live stream at 4 Eastern in this channel where you're watching. John, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Well, the predictiveplaybook.com and a lot of other different websites. I'm currently ranked number 4th at sportscapping.com in college football. Took it on the chin the last 2 weeks, Jim, in the NFL, but that happens. The NFL can be very tricky. I went 1-4 last week. But if there was ever a time with my experience, and I'm not hyping this, is that you want to get a veteran pro such as myself when on a losing streak, not when they're 9-0. It's very hard to go 9-0, but when somebody is 9-0, that's probably not the best time to be getting on because the law of probabilities definitely are against you going 18-0. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So I'm pretty confident with the NFL card this week. And I have a 10-unit college football game going on Saturday, which you can get over at thepredictiveplaybook.com and get more information at Twitter at John Ryan Sports and the number 1.
Make sure you're following John. Again, you will continue to learn about football while you're learning and winning in your gambling endeavors. And that's an important part of it. John makes you a smarter gambler. And finally, Joanna is in the house. She pointed out that she put down a bet on Josh Jacobs for 120 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns to win 1,200. So hopefully with Josh McDaniels gone, everybody on the team has a much brighter mindset, and I can totally see then Josh Jacobs maybe coming out of that season-long funk he's been in and hopefully hoping Joanna cash 1,200 big ones. All right, for John Ryan, who'll be back next Saturday, I'm Jim Coventry. I will be back again for the Start Sit today, 4 Eastern. Tomorrow, Start Sit, 11 a.m. Eastern. Good luck, everybody. Have a profitable week 9.